As production timelines compress, teams decentralize, and AI accelerates output, the way creative work moves through production is becoming increasingly consequential. That matters in TV, where early production choices now shape how formats adapt, how content travels, and how value is realized across platforms and markets. Yet, while the industry debates formats, platforms, and generative AI, and whether YouTube is TV, far less attention is paid to how production systems themselves are evolving beneath that surface. And today, I'm talking to David Klafkowski and Charlotte Layton, co-founders of Tanooki, a production platform used by some of the largest TV and content teams globally. We will be exploring how production systems are changing, how AI is being applied beyond the hype, and what that means for the future of TV production at scale. Charlotte, David, welcome to Media Unscripted.
Hi.
And just to set the scene, much of the TV industry conversation still centers on formats, platforms, and the latest wave of Gen AI, obviously, content. Far less attention, I feel, is paid to how creative work actually moves through the production teams, how it's reviewed, aligned and locked in to the briefs, even though the process shapes the impact, even the commercial outcomes of TV. So is this just my impression, or has this production layer remained largely under-examined, even if as it's becoming more consequential for TV?
Well, that's a really good question. There is no doubt the amount of media that's being created is increasing. I'm not going to use the expression exponentially because it's well overused, but the speed of iteration is much faster and getting faster, and decision making is progressively getting worse. The decision trees are deteriorating. It's got worse since we were chasing an on-air date, a transmission date, but that's not new. But that focused everyone's opinion. That's moved. So that decision tree is really, really different, and there's not enough focus on it, and that's one of the reasons we developed Tanooki.
I think you're totally right in that the way people are creating content now has changed quite dramatically, in that, as Klaf just referenced, we used to be governed by an on-air date, a transmission date in the old days. So everybody was working to a common goal, and that was never going to move. So decisions had to be made on time, because otherwise it wouldn't make its on-air date. I think now with the introduction of the streamer processes, in terms of that they don't have necessarily set dates for transmission, they're creating shelves full of content that if it's not topically relevant, then actually it can go out whenever. And so it could sit on a shelf for quite a while, which means the production process can go on for quite a while. You've got that aspect coupled with the absolute desire now for people to want to watch stuff now. They're hungry. There's so much fervor for content, and a lot of that content, if it is topically related, needs to get out quickly. So that totally throws on its head the old traditional processes that went through a production person's mind, if you like. And as Klaf referenced, that whole approval process, working together process, has had to change as well, because actually now you're having to make decisions quicker, but actually you're probably making decisions with way more people in the stake chain, because actually now you may be working with a brand partner. And so now actually you've involved a whole new group of people into your decision-making process. So as Klaf says, that's why we've really focused on creating a platform that really helps disparate groups of people, because we're not all in the same place anymore, to work together collaboratively, efficiently, but also creatively, to not lose that magic spark that when we're all talking about an idea or watching something together, we can still all have really valid opinions and no one's excluded.
I think it's a hugely valid point that Charlotte's made about that. The production industry or the traditional television production industry, particularly in the UK, is relatively new to the idea of having a brand or a content provider at the table. Because remember, television used to be fully funded, and it then became funded by production broadcasters spread across the globe. Now, of course, you're making productions partially funded by a broadcaster or a streamer, but then 25, 30, 70, 100% of the money could be coming from a brand. So you've suddenly got producers who are not used to working with an agency or with directly with the brand, more importantly, directly with the brand. And how do you share that content with them? And how do you make sure that that sign-off happens at the right time?
Yeah, and I think that we will get more of it, as I'm a firm believer that branded content needs to finally resurrect and in its full glory and have the proper place in the funding of content. So it sounds like that in practical terms, it's less maybe about the timelines shortening and everything being delivered faster, but it's more the production environment changed as work is spread across partners, markets, disciplines. And there is, that's a very interesting point. Obviously, you're practitioners. I haven't thought about it. The transmission, it used to be what drove everything in TV, but that's disappearing. You're right. Yes.
I think what's also changed quite considerably over the last 5 to 10 years is historically you would make a piece of hero content for the domestic broadcaster of whichever territory you were making that piece of content for. And then you may go into some sort of territory sale, international sales, and you would start to make your international versions. You'd make different versions for different territories after the event of that hero actually having probably even aired in its domestic country. Now what we're finding is that, of course, a piece of content is aired simultaneously across the globe. So actually, we're not just making the first iteration of that piece of content. We're now making all the versions of that piece of content at the same time, which means that, of course, you've then got all of the various considerations to take into account of, well, is this music suitable or clearable for this country? Is this behavior? Is this language? Is this, so suddenly you're actually making a lot of different versions of your original piece concurrently, which really, does add, again, a whole heap of layer to the process.
We used to joke about a program being locked, the expression something's locked, and then it became, well, it's actually ajar. Now, actually, a program is never really locked because
never ending.
It can be never ending, and we have even delivered finished masters to streamers, and this has been the case for quite some time, where even after it's been placed on the streaming platform, it's still changed.
It can still come back.
Yeah,
and a huge amount of that is how the decisions are taken and making sure that the stakeholders are bought in at the right time. And it is a continuous learning curve because every production is different, and it's all, and how you control that decision and record those decisions and record the sign off is so important. And advertising agencies nailed this a long time ago, and promo makers nailed it, which is the same as advertising, and program makers are now learning.
I think it's really another kind of key point to consider here is discipline. When we all used to work within the same environment, we'd be in the same building, we would have appointments to view, and people would knock on the door, and in they'd come, and there would be a big kind of meeting of minds, and everybody would discuss the content, make their notes, and then maybe come back the next day or the next week and have the same process again. Now, of course, it's much harder to bring that community together for that disciplined meeting when we are all going to watch it together. And I think that's what's one of the other things that we were very keen to establish within our platform, which is content creators and collaborators need a really easy way to meet each other in a virtual manner, but not in a disparate, are we on Teams? Are we on Zoom? Are we on Google Meet? Let's use WhatsApp. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm very confused. And actually my playback of my video is a very poor experience because that's not what this platform is optimized for. So what we've done with our platform, Tanooki, is inbuilt a video conference tool inside it so that people can stay in their safe, secure environment. Because let's not forget that content is king. The IP needs to be looked after and kept in a secure little bubble. So we've created an environment where people can actually come and do exactly what we're doing now. We've all met disparately and we're having a lovely conversation together, but we can also view that content together. We can live stream it. None of this is brand new. Obviously, there are loads of different applications that allow people to do this, but what they are is disparate applications. And what we're trying to introduce into the community and have successfully introduced into the community is the ability for this all to happen under one roof, or one virtual roof, I should say.
Yes, I remember from my short time in production and playing with the production technology, this was one of the key points, key functionality, just to have everybody in the same place with the same information, ability to talk to the production outcomes. But also, as you were talking, Charlotte, about those regular meetings before on editorial direction, and I still remember, sadly, I'm showing my age, the time when we were using tape before digital. The moment the digital, I remember ITV, people were commenting that now we have digital content. It's just almost too much rough cuts, rushes. People don't, it costs less. Well, now we know that it doesn't necessarily cost less because there is a cost of data center to store all this noise. But yes, the tape kept us maybe a little bit more disciplined.
I absolutely agree, because of course the challenge you've got now is that you can keep digital data in a much more accessible way. So even if you have or haven't been disciplined in how much you've shot, when it was all on tape, it was there or it wasn't there. Whereas now it is there and it's always there. And so you're always going to have that little niggle in your mind saying, but is there a better shot? Is there? Should I go and have a look again?
Well, one thing that just before we go off that decision making, but that appointment to view, what we find time and time again is a cut gets done, finished, whatever it is, and it's put somewhere for review, and it's posted, and that is the biggest time drain in a production you could ever have. It's posted rather than everyone agreeing to watch it at the same time. It's posted somewhere, and 24, 48, 72 hours goes by before everyone signs off. And then you think everyone signed it off, and then somebody from Australia comes online and goes, oh, but I didn't like that shot. Now, the discipline, as Charlotte said, used to be everyone turned up and watched it in the same room. Everyone who had an opinion turned up and watched it. Now, that discipline, without a doubt, has gone from a lot of productions because not everybody's together. What we've built with Tanooki is the single point where you can reintroduce that discipline, and everyone can have who needs to have an opinion or wants an opinion can watch it at a certain time, and that in reasonably good quality, in very good quality, I think. But obviously,
that's important.
And it's so important, this, and it's a discipline that's gone away, and the productions that have reintroduced it see real benefits, like real benefits in time, because time, I hate the adage, is money. So and we talked to a production company the other day who just had been using, I'm going to use Vimeo they use Vimeo, and things just disappear onto Vimeo and they wait. And, you put it there and you're waiting. And what a tremendous waste of everybody's time. But it's a discipline that's gone away that we need to reintroduce.
But I think it is also, as we work remotely, I mean, I can't remember how Office looks on the inside. So I think it is just, thank you. I wanted to ask you, just move on slightly to AI. Obviously, but I feel that as AI adoption accelerates, especially around what I'm seeing in TV, the conversations are finally starting to shift. It's less about those experiments, and it's more about where AI generally adds value and where it reduces friction and in real production environments. So in Tanooki, as far as I can see, you applied AI below the generative layer, below the hype. So around reviews, which you mentioned earlier, synchronization, transcription. Why does this layer deliver more value? I'm assuming it does. I think it does today than the sort of headline-grabbing content Gen AI tools.
Charles, do you want to go there?
It's such a huge topic, isn't it? I think where we stand on AI is that it's here. There's no point shying away from that fact. Um, but you need to use AI responsibly. And you need to always have in your mind, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? Now, we're in a content creation business. So ultimately, what we're trying to achieve is an engaging piece of content that a human wants to watch and that a human is going to feel some kind of connection with. That's our goal. We've also then got the goal of along the way, we have, at the moment, thank God, humans in the process that are involved in making that process, making those pipelines, making those journeys. So we've got kind of two goals now. We've got what does it look like at the end and does it resonate? And how do we make the best use of tools, including AI, to get us along the journey stages to make that content? So where we see the value is there's an awful lot of what we would call grunt work, or process work that's not creative driven. It's more kind of sorting through media, tagging media, knowing what is in your media. Have I got all my sunsets? Have I got all my shots of Paris rooftops? All of these kind of things are things that we are starting to absolutely employ AI to do, because it wastes so much human time to trawl through 3,000, 4,000 hours worth of content to find all of that. Whereas actually I can usefully ask my AI to do that for me. But I think where we're taking that a step further as well is that we don't want to alienate the editor. We just talked about the difference from tape and where I had all my content kind of, I could or I couldn't access it. Now we're in the digital world where I've always got access to it. Now we've got to get our editors and our story producers to feel really comfortable that potentially a layer before them has made some decisions for them about what they're going to see out of that pool of content that is available to them. So if they shot 3,000 hours, the AI might only potentially give them half of that. Now, how do I feel as an editor about that? Do I feel confident yet that the AI hasn't missed that really key shot? So giving you an example, let's say it's a reality style show. And let's say that Claf and I met in week one and we just had a meaningless exchange of conversation. There was nothing dramatic about our conversation, but there was a little cheeky look between us that 6 weeks later plays really well into the story, the narrative that has been created between whatever it is that Claf and I our characters are doing on that show. Now, AI wouldn't necessarily understand the nuance of that look that Claf and I had way back in week one. So it would probably discard it. But actually, if the editor had seen it, the editor would be like, oh my gosh, that's where it began, this feud between them or this great love affair between them or whatever it was. So I say this is all with caution, and that yes, we're employing AI, but we are doing it in a way that we have to bring everybody into a confident, they need to feel secure around it. So there's obviously that element. Then there's also what we call compositional AI. So how can I then engage with AI to actually take me through some of the early stages of the narrative process? So by that, I mean, as an example, let's take a series that's in season 5003. It's a fairly formulaic show. Therefore, it is entirely possible to teach the rhythm, the pace, how that show gets put together. You can start to teach AI that. So you can start, and that's what we're working with now, is starting to look that actually, if we can, Claf referenced earlier, time is money, always has been. If we can take maybe 1 or 2 weeks out of that assemble edit process, then actually we're saving a considerable amount of time across a multitude of productions across a year. So that's kind of where we're coming at it from a Tanooki point of view.
I think it's so important that the tools that are out there interact sensibly. So the information you garner from an AI tool actually then interacts sensibly with a tool that the delivery person is using, and that's the secret, is gluing them together, because there is AI tools that can generate information. Remember, it's just information. It generates it, and then what do you do with it? What are you going to do with that? And I think it's really key. It's how you glue those bits together so that it's the person using it the editor or the series producer is comfortable that information then drops into their pipeline in the right way to deliver it. One of the thing with a lot of the generative AI tools at the moment is, as you said, they're just people play with it, and it's wow, this is fascinating and it's incredibly clever. But what am I actually going to do with it? How does this link together? And the other key point that Charlotte made is, I really see there's always going to be human interest in content. And it's about people, it's about that story, that narrative. I can't see AI generating that. I mean, it could, but it's not going to be the same, because we'll know, we're humans, we know it's not real. It can, people can come up with narrative scripts, and I can really see a time where a film will be entirely done by somebody having an idea, they write the script, and it'll generate the film.
Yeah,
that's gonna happen. 100%. If not,
However,
it hasn't already happened. But it's different from reality, and that real stuff is where AI is going to really, really help. Sorry, Sean.
Well, you just sort of triggered in my mind another really important point, which is bias, which is, when you think about, we just talked earlier about how content now resonates on a global scale rather than on a local scale. And actually, if you, depending on what culture you are in and where that story is being derived from and who it's being created for, AI is not at a place yet where it understands the world in its entirety, because AI only learns from what it can mine. And there are so many areas in the world, cultures in the world, practices in the world that are woefully untapped by AI, because it's not there for it to learn from. So, and by this I mean, I look at talking to peers in the industry who look after archive, for example. There are huge untapped resources of content in countries that can't yet afford to digitize that content, i.e. it's still sitting on old-fashioned tape or film. And therefore, how can AI ever understand and bring that into its arena? Because it doesn't know it, because it's not there.
Point, because I think that we are in our Western developed world bubble, and the AI engines. Gosh, this is an incredible point, Charlotte. Thank you for making it. I haven't thought about it.
I need to credit a very good friend of mine, Heidi Shakespeare, whose company is, I will have to look that up very quickly.
But also, it just brings the importance of what I call human in the loop, is that when it's coming to localization, those remote teams, those globally dispersed teams, this is incredible value, and AI will not replace them anytime soon, especially because AI is just not fit for purpose in those areas that it wasn't.
And that's trained. And that I will clarify that my whole my tutelage on bias has all come from Heidi Shakespeare at Memnon.
I think it's quite interesting. We talked about teaching AI to create something. So if your series 5,000 or whatever, or if you're cutting down, I'm going to say highlights from archive content to fill a TikTok channel or to fill YouTube Shorts, you can train an AI to do that. Remember, this is relatively disposable cut downs of hero content. Now, that is what it's quite good at, or you can train it to do. The creation of the hero content is probably not going to be solely AI. AI will help with it, but it's not going to do that. And I just can't see it doing it in any point soon, because it's just different. The script basis, yes, but again, there is, as I say, I'm a big fan of things that really work, and I think I'm going to use the UK example of Traitors. I mean, let's face it, it's just a reality show with an ice skate to hang, and it's the human nature of that that makes it so incredibly popular. And we've seen that over the years with so many shows that we collectively have worked on, that when they get it right and the human element is there and the human interest is there, this stuff is, I hate the expression, but it's gold. It's just, and it's gorgeous. You can't stop. You're so sucked in and you want to watch it. And I can't see that being generated by any form of intelligence. Yeah,
but I wonder, actually, yes, I'm thinking, however, I wonder if AI could pick up the patterns of human, deception, lies, and create those credible patterns that we react to, the spike in attention when, the trait is just about to kill each other or whatever it is, or the phrasing. So I don't know. I think it is just a matter of time. Maybe
I think you're
you're right. You're right.
undoubtedly.
But
damn.
But I think it comes back to, the fact that it's such a hot topic and it's so noisy and everybody talks about it a lot. But actually, we're talking about a period of time that's ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. Things always evolve, and we're just in a point of time where we're all getting very excited about AI. Once upon a time, by the way, we were excited about 3D. That didn't last long, did it?
No, it didn't. No.
But I think AI is a different kettle of fish here. But my point is that I think we're getting to a point where the old adage, you use the best tool for the job. Well, it feels like humans are now part of the tool set, as is AI. So what is the best tool for this particular job? It might be AI. It might be the human. That's going to depend on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, I watched the skyscraper, the guy climbing Taipei 101, and I didn't watch it live. I watched it recorded, and I watched the whole thing. I watched it. I literally had it, and I watched it 2 days after the event, and I was utterly enthralled by it. And this was so utterly human, beautiful. I thought it was interestingly covered, and it just shows that there's an idea out there, and that's just mad human interest. There's this bloke crazily climbing now whether you think it was irresponsible of him doing it or not, there's all sorts of nuance in that, but it was so compelling.
But I think that's the point, is that what we're doing, to go back to your original question, what we're trying to do with AI is find ways to free up the human to be able to maximize and optimize their creative time. So anything that we think the AI can help with in that process, then we'll do it. But also then it's about, at the end of the day, businesses have to make money. Content has to earn its keep. It costs a lot to make it. It needs to then pay for its, supper.
Yeah.
So the more you can monetize that piece of content, the harder you can make it work for you. Obviously, the more beneficial that is. And I think what we're now giving production companies the opportunity to do is really understand what assets they have at their fingertips. It's all very well to look at what we're going to make, but actually now we're finding production companies are really delving hard into what they have made. And actually, how can we start to repurpose some of that historic content and make it work hard for us again? And actually, in the traditional terms, that would have required a human to go and actually, A, remember that it was ever made in the first place, and B, know where it is, and then C, hope that it's still in some sort of condition that can be used. Now, what we're also doing with Tanooki is we're helping production companies to really understand where their back catalogue is, helping them to make that transition for that back catalogue to go from the disparate bits of storage. But once it's been physically identified and located, then actually we're helping them to digitize that whole back catalogue, put it into some safe cloud storage, and then sit Tanooki as a layer over it, so that actually now, as a production company, I can look back through my assets and think, well, actually, that person or that topic was very en vogue at the time. It's gone horribly out of fashion, but now it's come back in fashion, or now that person is of particular interest again for whatever reason. Well, actually, I can now create a whole different strand of revenue from that content that I made years ago, either on a fast channel or selling it into a different territory. So again, using AI to speed up that process of what have I got, where is it, what can I use from it? That's another really helpful.
I also think that what you're describing now, it will take not just AI, it's a complete shift from commissioning thinking, from thinking about the content before it's made. This is what I call commercial innovation. It's like, we've got micro dramas. Everybody goes on YouTube, but not necessarily just dump the content on YouTube. So those would take completely the shift in the broadcasters and production from sort of commissioning upfront. And maybe now let's just create, even with AI, those quick to test bits of content just to let the idea and IP to earn its living before we spend a fortune to make a big piece.
I think Charlotte made the point about what we're doing we're making Tanooki as a layer across your archive, makes the access to it as frictionless as possible, because what you're creating is potentially not worth anything, or it could be worth an awful lot, but in order to do it, you've got to have a frictionless access to that content, that archive. And I think people used to think, oh, it's great, I've got a whole load of sunsets across New York or whatever it might be. That's going to be my value. Now, everybody knows that really a sunset goes out of date. If you want a cityscape, it's probably out of date. It's probably from 10 years ago. It doesn't look the same. It's still got the Twin Towers in it or whatever. It's not, that's a bad example. But so that's not where the value is. The value is in your show. As Charlotte said, might have come back into fashion. That person's suddenly on vogue. It's suddenly in new. You can create a whole load of stuff that you could get a load of shorts on YouTube and suddenly make some revenue out of it. But you're not going to get any money up front to do that. So the cost of access has to be cost effective. Now, with a bit of foresight and a bit of Tanooki layer, your production can have access to your archive very quickly at a clip view level, and then go, okay, I'm going to just use a bit of AI, I'm going to construct that type of narrative, go back and get the original asset at the highest quality you've got it at, combine it, get it on YouTube. I'm going to test it. I'm going to say YouTube because let's face it, they're probably one. So, and I know your channel's on YouTube, so it's going to be the de facto vehicle for this kind of content, and it means you can identify value from your old content, or not old, horrible, your existing archive. I don't think the expression.
Your gold mine.
Your gold mine. But you still need to generate new hero content, because you've just got to keep doing that. Now, hopefully, that hero content will be funded somehow by advertising or some stream of money, however it's funded. But you then maintain the rights of that content to then create something else from it. But it has to be as frictionless as possible to access that content. It seems so straightforward to say it, but production companies have disparate layers of stories. All their stuff's all over the place. People leave. They might employ someone who is an archivist, or they give the most junior person looks after it. They then leave. They get a more senior job. People don't know where the media is. They don't know it,
But also, their editors are not always commercially minded, and there's manipulation of content. It's unfortunately, it's not just a grab. Or often it's about grab audiences, get it to iPlayer or ITVX, whatever is the owned and operated platform. But also, how can we monetize? How can we turn this archive into a true asset that earns money?
And I think Klaf's point as well, that you're going to kind of take a whim. It's a bit of a hope that this is going to work. So it's not funded. It's not like you can, you haven't got a pot of money sitting waiting to enable you to do this kind of remine, if you like. For that reason, as Klaf pointed out, you have to be able to access this content literally at your fingertips. As a normal human, you do not have to be an engineer to do this. And I think this is one of the areas that we're really finding a huge gap in the market at the moment, to help production companies who aren't part of a huge corporation. Because a huge corporation will have some sort of very complicated MAM where all this content lives, and they will have a team of incredibly clever humans who are looking after that MAM, and who are, if you want something from 20 years ago, you have to go to one of these very clever humans, because they're going to be the only people that actually know how to get at it for you. Our point is that actually, as the owner of that content and someone that hasn't got a technical bone in their body, you should just be able to go onto your browser, type in the name of the show that you made 20 years ago, find it at your fingertips, press a button and receive it, because it is yours.
Type the mood that you're looking for, or a glimpse of this horizon in the winter light. That's we're going to get into the AI discoverability. Then I will not stop talking for it.
It is a search tool. Once your content is indexed, I mean, this is our vision, is that you just will ask Tanooki anything. Ask it anything. and it will come back with an answer if your content's
Love
there.
it.
But and you know what? This has been something that's been talked about for years, but it's been so expensive to implement.
Yeah,
And
before AI, that was impossible.
the pricing models. This is not there's nothing new under the sun, but the pricing models of that, it's becoming more cost effective. The idea that you keep content in your bucket, you're paying a minimal amount. It might be cloud like, it might be cloud. It's probably not likely it'll be cloud access cloud like rather than cloud because the cost is too great. And it's friction. It has to be frictionless.
It has
Otherwise,
to be
people won't do it. Yeah.
But it also has to have interoperability, because it has to be able to sit inside existing work processes and work chains. Otherwise, it's a standalone island, and we're back to square one, really, where we're trying to fit square pegs into round holes, and everybody's lives gets very complicated. So this is all about, as Klaf keeps saying, it's all about a frictionless approach as opposed to a hindered approach.
Yeah.
Let's finish a quick reflection from each of you, a rapid fire closing round. Charlotte, maybe starting with you. One principle you think production systems needs to get right for modern TV?
For me, a production company now needs to really understand their content. From the very first point of conceiving the idea, understand that idea, ensure that from day one, you have a way of tracking that idea through to its end piece, end result, and then create your gold mine and then mine your gold mine consistently. But that all requires you to have discipline, to have process, and to have access. And that is about making
clear vision as well.
Well, yes, the vision, but I would say that a lot of production companies would happily tick the box that they've got vision. Otherwise, they're probably not worth their salt. But far less of them would be able to tick the boxes around really good process, really good access, really good knowledge of where all my crown jewels are and how I can access them as and when I need them. And
David, one for you. One assumption about how content is made or scaled nowadays that you think the industry is still getting wrong?
So production workflow used to be linear. You'd shoot, edit, deliver. That is just not the case anymore. That can be really disparate. So it's that managing the creative, technical, and commercial. It's constantly interacting, and how that decision process is made. And production companies can't help but get it wrong because there aren't the tools out there. And having the right tools to make those decisions collectively, so you save time on the shoot, you save time in the process, and that's the important thing. Communication is everything.
Thank you. Charlotte, David, thank you so much for this. You make me miss production. Archives, my time at the BBC archives. Now we'll be reminiscing, but thank you so much. And this was going to be a conversation about production systems, but we ended up covering so much ground, always going almost philosophical about TV and the modern TV and content. So thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, loved it.